It's Thursday, 11 o'clock, and it's time for this week's watch drop. The theme this week is bracelet watches. We've got two of my favourite yellow gold watches on bracelet in stock, but we've also got two of my favourite stainless steel watches. And when I think about sports watches, obviously I'm drawn towards bracelets. I also think the same in summertime. Bracelets are much more comfortable when it really gets hot, and it's been extremely hot and humid in London recently. So enough chat, let's jump into it. I'm going to start by looking at one of the more interesting stainless steel sports watches released in the last few years, the Lange Odysseus. The first thing that grabs your attention about this watch is the bracelet. Something about the width of it as it hits the lugs makes it almost the most notable design component. It's a big old bracelet, and I think a lot of people are put off with that. But I don't know whether they're right to be. If you get this watch on the wrist, in the metal, it really does work. I really like the bracelet. It's a very comfortable thing, and I think the design of it, aesthetics aside, is really quite something. But what I really like about this watch is the dial. On similar sports watches, and we'll talk about the Nautilus in a minute, you don't quite get the depth of finish and interest that you do with the Odysseus. On this dial, you've got lots of different finishing types, from sort of satination through to guilloche. You've got not one but two apertures for the day and the date. And quite strangely, for a sports watch, you've got a small seconds instead of a central seconds. And I kind of like that because it's a real nod to all of their dress watches in their catalogue. Certainly when you look at this, you can absolutely see the design DNA from the Zeitwerk, for instance, and all of the different touches that just make it a Lange, like the brushed mid-case, and of course the decoration of the movement on the case back. It's undeniably a Lange. The thickness is a little bit larger than I'd hope, and as we get on to the Nautilus, you'll see by contrast that the Odysseus is actually quite a lot chunkier, and that goes for not just the case but also the bracelet. I will give the watch props though in terms of bringing together a very original design, frankly, and one that uses integrated pushers as crown guards, and in later iterations of the Odysseus have gone on to use these buttons for chronograph and other such complications. I think it's really, really cool. And of course, this being the first, I guess in time, may become the one to own as an investment proposition, but we don't use the I word here in Subdial. If the Odysseus has one real competitor in the market, it's Patek Philippe's Nautilus. So let's jump on and have a look at that one in contrast. The Patek Philippe Nautilus is one of those versatile watches that really can be worn as an everyday sports watch, but it's certainly smart enough to wear with a slightly more informal suit. It's so slender, certainly by contrast to the Odysseus. This 5712 1A is only 8.8 millimeters thick, whereas the Odysseus is over 11 millimeters, and you really feel the difference in heft when you pick it up and put it on. What we have with the 5712 is not just a time-only watch, but we also have a moon phase and a date and a power reserve on the dial. And there's quite a lot going on, but honestly, with everything that's going on and the asymmetry that comes with it, I actually find it quite charming. I think on balance I do prefer the dial of the 5711 with nothing else getting in the way of that beautiful Fume dial. But the 5712 is really, really good in every other way. It's a very thin, slim form factor as a result of the use of the 240Q micro rotor. That caliber is used in only really the very good models from the Patek lineup, and it isn't even used in the 5711. But you do have every other component that you're used to with the 5711, such as a bracelet that has a mix of finishing from satination on the outside through polishing in the middle of the links. You've got actually a very robust butterfly deployant clasp, but most importantly, you have something that's extremely comfortable to wear. I love this watch, and it was discontinued earlier this year, and as a result a lot of collectors have started to look to it as something that perhaps they should pick up before it's impossible to do so, and I don't blame them for that. It's a great watch, and I can see how it would fit in with a watch collection for sure. So now we're going to move on to my favourite brand, Cartier. And really this is a watch that I've been waiting to come into Subtile for such a long time. We don't see them very often. This is a Santos Carre. Carre meaning squared. You can instantly tell that it's different to the Galbier, which is one that we see more commonly and actually came after the Carre, because the links are flat on the top. All of the Santos models have these screws down the links, and it's a really nice design touch. It's something that I think continues the design philosophy from the screws on the bezel all the way through to give that sort of, I guess, monolithic design. But the links themselves being vertically brushed and being completely flat on the top mean that you get that reflective sort of play, the dance that you get in the sunlight, in the same way that you do with a Royal Oak, for instance, from Audemars Piguet. And that's something that you don't get with a Galbier that comes later, which has more curvature to the tops of the links. This is a full yellow gold 29mm example, and I love that. There's no two ways about it. I've had a day date in my collection for a while, and there is absolutely that moment in time when you want to, build your own confidence up a little bit by putting on something that feels like $1 million. And this is one of those watches that does exactly the same thing. Obviously, the rarity of this makes it a little bit more special. It on its own is just a wonderful watch. Yellow gold, white dial, blued hands, Cartier. I just don't know if there's much that can touch this. It's wonderful. I think these are quite hot at the moment, so I'm sure that'll fly out. Interestingly, this week we also have another, I think, quite overlooked Vacheron overseas in full yellow gold. This is the 35mm reference 42050. One of the things that I really like about the white dial early overseas is that, as opposed to the other dial colours, which we've seen here at Subdial a few times, the white has, if you look very closely, a nice guilloche pattern, which is something that you catch in certain lights, and it looks like a sort of spotting on the dial. It's really interesting, but then in other lights it just looks white or opaline. The watch is heavy, considerably more heavy actually than the Carre, and I didn't expect that, because the Carre is a chunk of gold, but this, I think, because of the way that the first few links taper down in thickness from matching the case thickness down to the thinner, larger part of the bracelet, you've got an awful lot of gold in that. This example is an automatic movement. I believe there are other examples, certainly in steel, that are quartz. I mean, for me, I love having a mechanical watch on my wrist. It would be a shame to have a quartz movement in this. And let's not forget that Vacheron is a Holy Trinity watchmaker. This is the top of the tree when it comes to fine watchmaking. And so everything about this is thought about and executed to perfection. I really like how these Gen 1 overseas have aged with time, and recently we've seen some just brilliant examples come up and go for sale, and some that I'd never even known of before. But this one, it's lovely to get it in stock, and particularly nice to hold it side by side with the Cartier Carre, because on paper they're very, very similar watches. They've each got their own story, and they each give you that look at me characteristic, I suppose, that I hope I'm not the only person that sometimes likes to enjoy out on an evening. Moving on from bracelets, there is one watch that I've frankly never seen before, and I really want to talk about it today while I've got the opportunity to do so. This is an Audemars Piguet Calatrava, but it's not a normal Calatrava. It has a bamboo bezel on it. It's made of white gold. It has a very dark sapphire cabochon and a silvered, flat, sort of satinated dial with that beautiful sans serif Audemars Piguet as the only script on the dial. I love this thing. There's something so Art Deco about it. It's ultra thin, manual wind, and despite its fairly small case size of 30mm-ish, it wears brilliantly well. It's got lugs that are similar to the Patek Ellipse, but even those lugs are finished with this sort of ribbed central lug design. It's just this wonderful thing. It's so sharp and so special. You just don't see these watches at all. I mean, at least I haven't ever seen this model before. I certainly don't think there are going to be many more opportunities to pick these things up, certainly at this price point. And the more you look at it, the more I fall in love with it. It's a really special watch. It's just another neo-vintage gem from Audemars Piguet. So yeah, very, very cool, and I had to talk about it despite not having a bracelet. So that's this week's drop. Over £1 million again hitting the site. We keep doing that and it makes my life really quite difficult, but I'm very pleased to say that it's happening. I've been asked time and time again what's my pick from the week, and I think this one's actually quite easy to do. It would have to be the Cartier yellow gold Carre. It's just a watch that I've been looking for so long. The condition of this is exemplary. You can tell it hasn't been polished very much at all, if at all, because of the way that the bezel is starting to oxidize and because of the way that the light reflects off of all of the surfaces. It's a really special watch. I'm so tempted to just buy it. I hope someone beats me to it, and I hope you all enjoy the drop this week. Do let me know what's your favorite watch from the drop, and I'll see you next week.